Gerald Bricca, also known as Jerry, married Linda Boulaw in Seattle, Washington in 1961. Linda was born in Barrington Hills, Illinois. She and her family later relocated to Seattle, where she met Jerry and briefly worked as a flight attendant. On June 6, 1962, Linda gave birth to the couple's only child, Deborah Ann Bricca. After their daughter's birth, the Briccas relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio, and moved into a tri-level home located at 3381 Greenway Avenue in Bridgetown neighborhood in 1963. Jerry, 28, a hardworking chemical engineer with Monsanto Company located in Addiston, Ohio, often worked nights, weekends, and holidays. Linda stayed home for a few years after Debbie's birth. In 1966, Linda, 23, decided to go back to work at a temporary part-time job with local veterinarian Dr. Fred Leininger at his GLENWAY Animal Hospital. The Brickers were well liked by the neighbors, and often they had get-togethers for backyard barbecues and holiday parties. There's no doubt the Brickers were living the American dream, but someone shattered that dream in a moment of violence. On Tuesday, September 27, 1966, neighbors of the Briccas started noticing odd things at the Bricca home. Jerry hadn't brought in the trash cans from the curb for one. Their next-door neighbor, Richard Meyer, threw a local newspaper on the front porch, but no one ever retrieved it. The couple's vehicle sat in the driveway and on the street in front of the homes unmoved for 2 days. The Myers tried calling the Briccas. No one answered. Richard Meyer walked over to their home and noticed the front door ajar. Around 10:40 p.m., Meyer told another neighbor, Richard Jansen, of 3374 Greenway Avenue, about the door, and the two decided to go inside the Bricca home. Jansen, a World War II vet, recognized the smell as soon as he fully opened the door. He smelled rotting flesh numerous times during his war days, and fear struck him like a bolt of lightning. The men walked through the main level of the home and upstairs to the bedrooms. Jansen and Meyer discovered the bodies of Jerry and Linda Bricca on the floor of their bedroom. Jerry was face down on the floor between the wall and the bed. Linda's body was face up across her husband's body. Bricca's daughter, Debbie, was found dead on the bedroom floor. Horrified at their discovery, Jansen and Meyer ran to call the police. The crime scene. Soon after the authorities arrived at the crime scene to begin investigation in the grisly murders, both front and back doors of the home were closed and unlocked. There was no sign of forced entry or struggle. Police found a load of clothes in a dryer located in the utility room next to the living room. The clothes were still damp. It appeared Linda had folded clothes recently because some of them were still located on the couch in the living room. The family's two dogs, Thumper and Dusty, were locked in the rear room unharmed. The SPCA later took charge of them. A 6.5-inch knife from an Indian carving set made from teak wood and steel was missing. An inscription, Raha Bros, India, was on the fork blade and may have been on the knife. The police never found. Its mate was on top of the buffet in its sheath. There were no indications someone ransacked the buffet. Upstairs in the couple's bedroom, police found the bodies. Jerry was fully clothed except for his shoes. A sock was stuffed in his mouth, and a piece of adhesive tape was clung to his body, which suggested that he and Linda were bound. Whatever material the killer used to tie their hands, they removed later. Linda, clad and unzipped the housecoat over a nightgown, appeared to be getting ready for bed. Debbie was wearing a flannel nightgown and one red sock. The mate was on her bed. Jerry's empty wallet laid on the couple's bed. A robbery was considered a possible secondary motive in the murders. Investigators found a bundle of about 15 short lengths of braided hemp rope in the garage the killer may have used to bind Jerry. They were all tied together and were extra tie-downs for the canvas Jerry bought to cover a rabbit hutch. The rug was vacuumed and removed for analysis. The police dusted for fingerprints, and the investigations did find a Latin fingerprint, but nothing ever came of that. Authorities collected a large box of evidence for examination. It includes the victim's clothing, hair samples found in the house, bed sheets, and bloody towels. During the autopsy, coroner Dr. Frank P. Cleveland performed the autopsies. Jerry and Linda had head wounds of a penetrative type, apparently not made by a knife. The marks were found on adults' arms, confirming their hands were at some point during their ordeal. All three victims had been stabbed in the chest and the back, sometimes between 10 p.m. and 6:30 a.m. Jerry had 9 stab wounds and Linda had 8. The killer had raped Linda, supposedly. Debbie had been stabbed 4 times with such force that the knife went all the way through the little girl's body. Dr. Cleveland could not determine the sequence of the murders. During the investigation, detectives traced dates on milk bottle caps and learned that Jerry bought 3.5 gallons of milk at a Glenway Avenue dairy at 8:30 p.m. Sunday, September 25th, 1966. Through interviews, police discovered that Linda's father telephoned her at 10 p.m. on Sunday to say he and her mother were about to leave on vacation. Neighbors law saw Jerry Bricca between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. Sunday taking trash cans to the curb for the garbage for pickup. The next morning at 6:30 a.m., the family did not respond to the phone call from Jerry's employer, Monsanto Co., located in Addiston. Jerry was supposed to fly to Nitro, West Virginia at 7:05 a.m. with Glenn Ritchie, Monsanto's products supervisor, on company business. Ritchie called to find out why Jerry was not at the airport. Richard Meyer's wife told police she noticed a suspicious man walking back and forth on Greenway Avenue on the Thursday before the murders. She was out in the garage painting tables for the Rathskeller. Richard said she saw this man walking back and forth. She wondered about him, but she says that he couldn't identify his face now. Police suggested the killer used missing newspaper to wrap and carry the bloody knife out of the Bricca home and possibly threw it into the garbage bin. All in all, authorities conducted 400 interviews in the investigation. Did the couples know their killer? There were several indications that Jerry and Linda Bricca knew their killer. For one, there was no signs of forced entry or a struggle. However, detectives theorized the killer gained access to the home through the walkout basement entrance door. Debbie was a curious child, so Linda never left out of the missing knife in the open. She usually concealed it in one of the drawers. Police, though the killer murdered her because she may have recognized him. The two family dogs, Dusty, mostly poodle, and Thumper, a cocker spaniel mix, were known to be aggressive and to bark at strangers, yet neighbors did not hear any barking coming from the Bricca home Sunday night. No sounds were coming from the house and the night at all. County police cleared Richard Meyer of the involvement in the murders, although he was never an official suspect. The Myers received prank calls and harassment. The callers accused him of the killings. When he changed his phone number, they called him at work. However, he always cooperated with the police. At the time of the Bricca family murder, 7 unsolved murders, including the Briccas, occurred over 10 months in the Cincinnati area. Besides the Briccas, there were murders of 4 women. 3 were raped and strangled. The other fatally stabbed after being run over by a stolen taxicab. Police eventually arrested someone in that case. On December 2nd, 1965, 56-year-old Imogene Harrison, wife of the University of Cincinnati space scientist, was found dead in her apartment building's basement. 4 months later, Louise Dant, 58, was found dead in her Price Hill apartment on April 4th, 1966. The third victim, Jeanette M. Messer, 56, and a widow, was found deceased in a city park near the University of Cincinnati campus. Police believe the same killer was responsible for what was dubbed at the time the Cincinnati Strangler. They never identified him. Initially, authorities wondered if the Strangler had murdered the Bricca family due to the similarities. However, the killer mainly targeted older women. But the police did have a person of interest in custody. The veterinarian that Linda Bricca had worked for, Dr. Fred Leininger, at Glenway Animal Hospital before her murder, there were rumors that the two were having an affair, and Leininger killed her and the family when she wanted to break things off. There were no rumors Jerry had a fling. Police did not publicly release Leininger's name until years after the murders, but within days of the killing, police interviewed him for about 10 minutes in one session and 45 minutes in another. The latter one was taped recorded. The next day, Lieutenant Herbert V. Vogel of the Ohio State Police visited Leininger's wife, Lynn, who told Vogel her husband was upset by the interview and directed him to call his attorney, Richard Moore, with further questions. Vogel called Moore, but Moore had stipulations authorities had to meet before he would allow them to talk to his client. Initially, the police did not accept the terms. A few months later, in 1967, Police wanted to question Leininger again, where he was willing to meet Moore's terms, but the lawyer declined the interview. A month earlier, Vogel sent Moore a letter agreeing to Moore's terms, which partly included Moore be present at all times. The Cincinnati Enquirer, March 28, 1966 issue reported Vogel also included 7 questions he wanted to ask Leininger. When did you last see Linda Bricca alive? Did you see Linda Bricca on Thursday, September 26, 1966? When did you last visit the Bricca residence? For what reason did you last visit the Bricca residence? Did Linda Bricca ever discuss with you any personal problems? Were you ever out with Linda Bricca socially? Where were you on Sunday, September 25th, 1966, between 9 p.m. and midnight? Moore told County Detective Gerald Taylor that even if he received total compliance with his terms, he would study and consider it. But even then, I would probably not allow it. Vogel received answers to those questions. When the Cincinnati Enquirer reporter Frank Weichel asked Hamilton County Police that what was new with the investigation, a police official told him, "We're just about living with the suspect. A policeman checks on him from time to time. He leaves home and monitoring, stays nearby until he returns for bed. One of our men even had lunch in the same restaurant where the suspect eats." In November 10th, 1967, a column Weichel wrote, "The knowledge the police are watching him apparently is having some effect on the suspect. I understand that his lunch cocktails are increasing. At first, he had 1 drink, but now he's having 3 drinks with his lunch." Unfortunately, Dr. Fred Leininger never cooperated with the police and worked in his veterinary practice until his retirement in 1995. Most people believe he killed the Bricca family. Some reporters vary on this, but apparently Leininger committed suicide in 2004. It's confusing because they also say his wife Lynn committed suicide with him, but their obituaries give totally different dates. His obituary states Leininger died on February 23, 2004, while she passed away months later on December 11, 2004. One report mentions only Leininger committed suicide.